Is that the volume you're going to talk?
I talk quietly. Oh, you know who I could be? It's organic.
It's not rated number one. That was funny that they got Gwyneth Paltrow on for that. In your face, Goop haters.
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast, where we discuss the world of film from a fresh angle. And now your host, Robert Yaniz Jr.
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast. This is Rob. On this show, we like to democratize the film criticism conversation by bringing on film critics and fans alike to talk about a film that really means something to them, that they grew up with, or something that really emotionally resonates with them in some way, something that they personally connect to. I'm pleased to welcome back to the Crooked Table Podcast the first returning guest. I guess I guess I had Carrie on a couple times, but the first proper returning into the format of the show that's a long qualifier, like those films that come out. It was the number one opening weekend for a film that's an original non-genre in this decade with this kind of person and whatever. So that's a lot of qualifiers. But welcome back to the show, Kai Yaniz.
Woo woo! Happy to be back, Rob, for my return.
So, yeah, you're the first returning proper in the format of this revamped podcast. So people already know how we know each other. We are married.
That's true, but we do need to qualify that with we've been married for 5 years.
This is true.
As of last week.
That's right.
Aww.
Happy anniversary to us. So we actually, part of the reason we're recording this sort of last minute to go up this week is that we just returned from a trip to Toronto. We were doing a 5-year anniversary / whatever. I guess it was our first international trip with our daughter and our first international trip since our honeymoon. So you know, what do we think of Toronto? Just since in lieu of the how we know each other deal, let's just give people a quick update on what we thought of what we've had going on.
Well, I thought Toronto was really cool. The people were really nice. They love espresso like we do. There was an espresso shop on, as Rob just said it before. There was about 2 of them on every block, so that was cool. So we could just walk there from our Airbnb that we stayed at. The weather was actually still pretty cold. It looks like spring doesn't start in Canada until May. So in Toronto, the temperature was probably in its 30s or so. So we had our coats on and our hats and just walk, but it was nice enough that we were still able to walk around. It's a great walking city. There are a lot of dogs, a lot of walking paths, a lot of things to do. Cool restaurants. They actually have a lot of breweries as well.
It's Canada, so they're about coffee and beer, basically. Literally, this for people listening that have never been to Canada, and granted, I've only been to Toronto, really. Every place, a lot of times they have beer and then an espresso machine right next to where the taps are. You right?
Yeah, I know. It's super cool. It's like home base, and they have. It's Toronto is a huge metropolitan area, and there were cars and there's mass transit, so they have streetcars, buses, but it wasn't. The roads weren't as busy as you would think, and we actually had a rental car and drove through the city. Okay, Rob drove through the city one day, and then I drove from the airport, but it wasn't that crowded on the roads like you would think in an urban area like that. So, just had a really laid-back vibe, and I don't know if people were laid back because they were cold.
But according to the people there, that's actually kind of warming up for them. That's, like you said, that's their spring. So for us, we're in Florida. It's 85 degrees here now, so 40 degrees is...
With wind chill.
We get here 2 days a year, maybe.
Yeah, and with wind chill.
Right,
so,
it was windy, too.
Yeah, there was one day we were there that... it was windy and it was cold, and we walked off the plane and I grabbed my daughter's coat, and she apparently had said, "It's cold," and I quickly grabbed the coat and put it on because we actually ended up getting off the plane outside on the tarmac. So that was fun and cold.
Yeah, and it was a lot of opportunities for me to be look, that was in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, which is one of my favorite movies. And if you're interested in hearing me gush about that for 2 hours, we did a commentary on that a couple of years ago. We've been talking about doing more crooked commentaries, but we just have not really gotten the chance either for the Patreon or elsewhere, just as bonus episodes. But yeah, so it was a really fun trip.
Yeah, and we saw Niagara Falls too, in case anyone's wondering. We actually visited my cousin in Buffalo. So in order to go to Buffalo, you do have to drive through Niagara Falls because there's really only one or two roads to get there. So we did stop by there, and it was beautiful. And there's actually still ice and snow on the falls because it's still cold. And it's really cold there because it's just gushing water.
So that's just pretty much what we've been up to. That's been our big development lately as we took that trip, and everything else is kind of business as usual. So I guess up front, Kai, do you want to tell people where they can see what you're up to elsewhere? Like not social media wise, but basically this is an opportunity for you to throw your YouTube videos out there.
Well, before that though, I'm really surprised that you also didn't mention that we went to the Castle of Casa Loma.
Oh yeah, we did a Casa Loma, which is featured in Scott Pilgrim and the X-Men movies, and I guess Rocky Horror, which I didn't realize. Chicago, like a million movies, yeah. So that was cool, and I have pictures of that. I should actually throw some of them on the Crooked Table Twitter feed or something, just to be like, look, I was there, it happened. Especially people listening to this episode will be looking for that now. But yeah, that was fun, and we did the whole tour, and our 2-year-old was pretty patient considering that we were just strollering her around. Oh no, we actually didn't even use a stroller. That's right, it's not made for that. So we were actually just kind of carrying her around from room to room, being like, look how pretty this antique, bed frame and whatever.
I want to sit on the sofa. No, you can't sit on the sofa.
Yeah, there's plexiglass there, so you're not gonna mess with any of that. But yeah, so that was fun. That was definitely a highlight of our trip. As far as the touristy things, we tried to just do more like kind of getting the local flavor type of trip than getting sucked into every single little tourist thing or like museums and things like that. That was the big, I guess, touristy thing we did.
Yeah, definitely.
So Kai?
So what have I been up to? Where can you find me? So I have an ebook about my travels through China and Australia that greatly enhanced my life and led me to where I'm at today. And that's called Becoming Version 2.0. And you can find it on Amazon.com. You can also find it on through Nook, which is through Barnes & Noble. You can pretty much find it through any main ebook distributor. It's actually even on iBooks for Apple. So you could kind of find that book anywhere now. I also have a YouTube channel that doesn't actually have a name yet because it goes on my website called beBold-bebrave.com, and that website really focuses on my YouTube videos about inspiration and motivation and just some tips on living a happy life. But it also has affiliate links and my book plug. And so it's just kind of a website devoted to me. So those are the two big things that I have going on, and then some passive income, I guess, thrown in there along the way.
Cool. Yeah, very good. Definitely check those out. I obviously am on top of them and am a fan of Kai's work. And I edited the book, so I'm personally invested in Kai's ebook, having spent hours meticulously helping her kind of hone her voice, I guess, a little bit. So before we really get lost on an hour-long tangent of just what's going on in our lives, which would be a totally different podcast, let's just formally go ahead and introduce it. We're going to be talking this episode about the 1999 comedy Office Space. So let's listen to a little bit of the trailer right now.
I don't like my job, and I don't think I'm going to go anymore.
One of these days, I just kick this piece of...
I'm thinking now it might be more fun to just get fired. And I've always wondered what that would take.
Oh, Peter, listen.
Well, it looks like you've been missing quite a bit of work lately.
Well, I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
That's just a straight shooter with upper management written all over him.
We're going to be getting rid of these people here. Mr. Samir, not going to work here anymore anyway.
That was a little bit of the trailer from Office Space, the 1999 comedy written and directed by Mike Judge. And so, Kai, since you picked this, obviously, what is this film about for people that somehow have never seen it? And, why did you choose this one?
So this movie is about 3 disenfranchised corporate employees who take matters into their own hands against the man. And it's a comedy with Jennifer Aniston, Ron Livingston.
I want to stop you right there, first of all. I like the fact that you said 3 disenfranchised workers who take their matters into their own hands about the man, and it stars Jennifer Aniston. Sounds exactly like Horrible Bosses, which we just watched for the first time, like while we were in Toronto at night on Netflix. I just thought that was funny, and it made me realize how many movies there are about 3 disenfranchised corporate workers: Office Space, Horrible Bosses, 9 to 5. And now I'm feeling like that's a perfect triple feature for somebody to put together. Anyway, as you were, Jennifer Aniston, Rod Livingston. I just was making an interesting observation. And we're having our bottle of Canadian wine, so I'm a little more off the cuff than normal.
Oh, yes. Canada, in that area, going towards Niagara Falls, they have so many wineries, so many vineyards. It's insane, like sign after sign after sign. So keep that in mind.
It's another selling point, yeah.
Yeah, keep that in mind whenever you go to visit in between the Toronto and Niagara Falls area.
Shout out to the Ravine Vineyards where we got this. This is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it is good. It doesn't taste like it has any sulfites in it.
The Cabernet Franc red wine, sand and gravel Cabernet Franc.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
back on track.
And maybe that's where I got disenfranchised employees from. Maybe it was something subliminal from Horrible Bosses from IMDb.
Well, this is a much better film. We should say that first off.
Yeah, and I think even this movie was not successful.
Kai and I have been talking a lot about 1999, and she even mentioned to me off air how, make sure you mention it's the 20th anniversary of Office Space. And I said, well, of course we're going to bring that up because 1999 is such a landmark year for cinema. Freddie and I talk about it on our Matrix episode, which was released in 1999. But there are so many movies that are either like creatively like ambitious or just sort of more fringe genres or more like weird offbeat films that kind of broke into the mainstream, like being John Malkovich. You have something like American Beauty, The Sixth Sense, even Phantom Menace pushed technology and was like kind of a very memorable film for a variety of different reasons. But we were talking right before we hit record that The Matrix is number 5 that year, and Office Space was number 121.
Oh wow!
With a $10 million box office gross, and that's it. And it cost $10 million. So it maybe broke even, probably was still in the red because of all the, whatever PR they put behind it, which is marketing, which is probably not a lot, but enough probably for it to still not really turn a profit until home video. Yeah,
and it makes me wonder what made Jennifer Aniston even be in this movie? Because she was very successful.
Friends,
and she was making, at least at that point, $750,000 an episode.
Right.
So I wonder what happened where she read the script and was like, I want to be in this movie, because she's really she's really the biggest name person in that film.
For sure. Ron Livingston is not exactly a household name, and I feel like now even when you see him in something like Tully, you're like, hey, the guy from Office Space. And I believe this was probably one of Mike Judge's first, he had done Beavis and Butthead Do America before this, but I don't know really how many films he had directed prior to this. He was basically known as the Beavis and Butthead guy, and I think King of the Hill may have just started or was around that time.
Around that time, yeah.
But I wasn't. The funny thing is that I wasn't a big fan. I still don't really care for Beavis and Butthead or King of the Hill, and I didn't care for Extract, the movie he did after this. Like, this is pretty much the only thing that he's like the creative force behind that I actually really enjoy.
What about Idiocracy?
I like that. That more terrifies me than anything
we've
else.
seen it one time because it was a nightmare.
Well, it's scary, especially now in the MAGA age. It's even scarier to watch something like Idiocracy. But
it's with Mike Judge's films, at least with Office Space and Idiocracy.
Right.
Because I haven't seen really the other ones. It's like these movies seem so stupid, but yet they're actually really smart. and like have a high level concept behind them.
And I think there are defenders of King of the Hill and Beavis and Butthead that will say that same kind of thing, that like King of the Hill is kind of poking fun at the whole redneck culture and all of that. But I guess I never cared enough to really look that closely into it. Aside from possibly Idiocracy, this is the only real Mike Judge property that you, I guess, at all invested in. Oh,
yeah, for sure. I mean, you know how I feel.
Well, I do, but not the listeners don't.
Well, you didn't ask me that question yet.
So I did, sort of. I asked you in tandem with what is this movie. So you were, like me, 16 when this came out or so, or about to turn 16. About to turn 16. This was February 19th, 1999. So it literally just celebrated its 20th anniversary.
It would have been really cool to have had this podcast on February 19th, but we were doing other things.
Well, but then you have to coordinate when it airs on Odyssey, ODYSY1.com, Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. Or when it arrives in the podcast feed, it's like, close enough. Couple months away, it's all good. So you were, like me, about to turn 16. Why did you see this in theaters? Probably not. Most people didn't, apparently. And when you did see it for the first time, did you relate to the disenfranchised corporate worker thing, or did you not because you were a teenager and therefore what did you have to really be disenfranchised about?
So I first saw this movie 5 years after it came out in 2004.
Okay.
On let's say home video
or Comedy Central, which used to run it a lot.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I saw it in 2004, and I'm watching this movie. This is my life. Like, I really related to this movie. And I also was, I don't know why that was, because I hadn't even had a corporate job yet. I was still working retail, and I was in my first couple of years of going to community college to be a business major. Maybe that's the other thing. I'm like, I'm going to be working in the corporate world. Got to be in business.
This is your future, Kai.
But I just really related to the scene with like the fax machine and just disenfranchisement. I was like, oh my God, this is my life. Like it just spoke to me. And this is actually one of my most favorite movies, Office Space and Shawshank Redemption. Two totally different genres and tones, but both my favorites.
Well, and Shawshank, Office Space, Down with Love, and then like maybe one other one were like the only movies we both owned on DVD when we met.
Yes.
Am I missing one? I think it was just...
There's Something About Mary. But
Something
I don't
About
like
Mary.
that one that much.
I like that movie a lot, actually.
I don't know why I even own that.
So I didn't see Office Space until later than you did. I remember I was in college. I think I rented it somewhere. I didn't feel like I got it out of the library or something. And because I still do that with movies a lot because, free rentals. And I remember I think I was late to a class because I had to finish watching the last few minutes or something.
Well, I want to say about the library thing. Yeah, guys, in case you don't visit the library because you don't like books, the library also acts as a multimedia center.
Oh, I have so many CDs that I'm pretty sure that's where I first saw this. And
what made you want to see it?
I'd heard a lot about it. I think I caught part of it on Comedy Central maybe or something like that.
I think that's what happened to me too.
Because like I said, they were airing it constantly. At one point. So I eventually got the DVD. It's actually the weird release. It's like the slim case that I don't know what the reasoning was behind that. I guess to save shelf space or maybe it's cheaper for them to produce. I don't know what made me eventually break down and buy it. Maybe I did see it on TV and that's probably what happened.
And they got to you.
Well, because the older you get, as a teenager, I don't feel like any teenager can really appreciate this. Because that's why I was asking, you were 16 when it came out, like me, or almost 16. When this came out, what about this movie about people being like, corporate America sucks, I'm going to like not give a shit about it anymore. And just like, I just want to do nothing. Teenagers, a lot of times when they're not doing schoolwork, they are kind of doing nothing. And you're just like, it's all emotional turmoil. It's not really like, oh, I got to get up for work tomorrow. And, as much at least. Granted, I'm not knocking any teenagers that hold down jobs, but this is a very specific environment that this movie's about.
In fact, I think when this movie came out, I wasn't even working a job yet.
Yeah.
I started working...
I wasn't,
but I started working
it, so.
retail when I was 17.
Right.
So I still had another year and change to go, but I'm still like...
But you didn't see it when it came out, like
right.
You said. You saw it 5 years later. So, but at that point, you were, I guess, close. You understood this environment more. But watching this as a teenager, I feel like I wouldn't have connected to it because what it's doing is very, it's a satire kind of corporate America, and it's making a lot of points about how you're kind of trapped within that world. Cubicle Nation is that. I think that's the one of the books that you read as a 20-something.
Yeah,
and you haven't really had that experience yet. But the older you get, the more you're like, oh my God, that is so me, stuck in traffic, and you change lanes, and then all of a sudden that one stops moving, and
it was basically what it was. It was like Seinfeld.
Yeah, this is basically a movie about nothing, but everything.
It's like an office. It's a corporate America, corporate global corporate Seinfeld, because that's why we can relate to it. And then, especially when I keep forgetting his name.
Peter. I have it up in front of me. That helps.
Peter, when he says, "I don't like bills. I don't think I'm going to pay those either." I'm like, oh my God, this guy has he's the guru of life. I mean, I don't want to work and I don't want to pay bills either, but I still do it.
Well, it's kind of like Freddie mentioned last week on the Shazam episode, is that you're kind of living vicariously through the lead character in this. So he's like, I don't like work. I don't think I'm going to go anymore. You're like, oh my God, you're my hero. That kind of thing. So there's an element of that. But if you haven't lived in that environment, been in that space, watching the clock tick 4:58, 4:59, nice, 4:58, 4:59, assuming you got off at 5, which I never really did. I always got off at 5:30 or 6. I don't know who these people that work 9 to 5.
That means no lunch break, guys.
Yeah, basically.
That's what I didn't get either.
I feel like that's a term that was coined before people had a designated lunch break, or before the workday was a full the work time was a full 8 hours. I wonder what that is, because that 9 to 5 expression has never made any sense to me, because it's always more like 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever. But yeah, so this film, I think you have to work in corporate corporate environment and to really have it resonate with you. So it makes sense that it makes sense that we didn't see this until years later, because nobody did, because it went so under the radar. And 2, I think it benefited our experience in watching it, because by then we were at least closer to, if not already in the midst of corporate America and having to clock in and be there at a certain time and sign in on your desk and deal with all that crap. So what's amazing to me is that this film not only became some sort of a cult hit initially, but has broken out to be such a mainstream where everybody now is like, oh, it's Case of the Mondays. Like, everything about this film is so iconic. You can find bobbleheads or like Funko Pops for the characters. It's like
Red Stapler.
Yeah, we could set the building on fire. And all the characters are so memorable and quotable. It's crazy to me that it's turned out that way, and I'm sure that Mike Judge is ecstatic with the fact that this film has become such a, I said earlier about 1999, but such a cinematic landmark. Like, this is considered probably one of the most popular comedies of the last couple decades.
Hell yeah.
So what, I guess, kind of transitioning into the review section, which obviously full of spoilers, this movie's 20 years old. What is it about this movie that you love so much? Like, give me some of your favorite things about it, or your favorite moments or scenes, and then I'll come through with some of my counterpoints on certain things that I'm like, that's a little whatever.
I do like the scene where Peter is walking through the hall at work with getting the CD-ROM from
Samir,
getting the CD-ROM from him to then go infect the computers with Superman virus, but just like he's walking.
Oh, the Superman 3.
Yeah, and he's like walking, and he looks so smooth and suave, and they're playing that cursed laden
song. Motherfucking God. Is that one? Oh no,
that's
damn,
a
it feels good
printer.
to be a gangster.
Yeah, and just him walking through the halls looking all suave in his business suit. I was, for a long time, like, actually attracted to guys in business, like, which is great, because that was my major.
Yeah, a lot of accessibility to that.
Because it was just like, he looked so suave and smooth, and I actually had a little bit of a crush on Ron Livingston for a long time. And when I would see him in things like Sex and the City, for example, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Peter from Office Space.
I remembered his name this time.
I know. And the other scene I like a lot is with the fax machine, the printer, and they're beating up in the field.
I always remembered it as a fax machine, but it is a printer, because the whole point is that it's low on toner. Right?
Yeah, and it's like the all-in-one, because you got, as in the corporate world, you got to have an all-in-one thing. That's fax machine, a printer, a scanner, a copier. So, and then them beating up the fax machine, because we can all relate to that. The stupid machine that doesn't work. Is that a toner? Is getting ink on you?
Well, favorite moments. I like I like all the stuff you're mentioning when he's taking apart his cubicle and kind of knocking it down. And there's something with dead fish guts. He's like throwing in the mail slot or something. I forget.
I think he threw the dead fish guts at Lumbergh's head. Or something.
Oh,
like
yeah,
he threw
something.
him on the ground.
We'll get into Lumbergh and Milton and all the character stuff. Diedrich Bader is his neighbor next door. We're like, well, I do two chicks at the same time. I always want to do that. Like all the stuff that he's doing is really funny. And I was a fan of his from Drew Carey's show and all that stuff back in the day. So I liked everything with Lumbergh and everything with Tom Simkowski with the jump to conclusions, Matt.
Oh God, that's quoted.
I
think about that. I think about that all the time.
Everything in this movie is quoted.
Like,
in fact,
jump to conclusions, Matt.
I don't want to kind of. This feels like another topic, but this is kind of a free for all conversation since this is a movie that's not really plot driven, and basically the plot of the movie is. And I guess this is one of my issues with the movie. Like I obviously love all the rebelling against corporate America because I became a freelance writer for a reason, so I understand all of that. But when it gets to like the fact that the story is set in motion because he gets hypnotized, that I always find as a little bit of a bummer. Like I'm like, really? Does it have to be something like it's almost borderline magical realism a little bit when that happens? And so it feels like he's under a spell and not necessarily reaching some epiphany. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That I feel that kind of undercuts a little bit of the theme of him like finally seeing the light and all of that. Even though
he was unhappy, though.
He was unhappy, but he didn't have the balls to do
hypnotized.
anything about it, I guess. And that's the catalyst for what makes him different than everyone else. And like, he's just like, no, you know what? I don't care anymore. And the whole point of the hypnotism, and this is kind of made clear in that scene, is that he's basically removing his anxieties or his inhibitions, basically. Just like, you know what? Just be true to yourself. Stop worrying about what everybody else thinks, and just. Basically, he's all id and no ego or super ego. He's just sort of like, I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to. Yeah.
Like our child.
Yeah, exactly. She can relate to this. So that always kind of bums me out a little bit about the way that the movie is kind of kicked into motion. But once it gets going, I love all that anti-establishment shit. Like, I think that's all great. But what I was saying that started to feel like it's kind of its own conversation is... It feels like this movie has emerged as such a kind of cultural force. Like there's no really like who's the big breakout star of Office Space?
I think Milton. I mean, we're still all quoting Red Stapler. Where's my Red Stapler?
Well, and that's you know why that might be, because Office Space is actually I think it's based on a series of sort of animated shorts that Mike Judge had done that were about Milton.
Right, yeah.
So this is all kind of... Milton was the starting point for this idea. And then Mike Judge just expanded it out from there. And I guess that's sort of, Peter is kind of the everyman. I mean, he's kind of a, moderately good-looking, but ultimately kind of bland white guy. So he's basically as, like, if you were designing a sim of, like, and there's another dated reference for you. If you were designing a sim, meaning the game The Sims that came out around the same time as this movie, of like an average corporate worker, it'd be like white guy, slim, like medium build, very like blank expression. It would be this guy. It would be Ron Livingston. No knock to Ron Livingston, who's a good looking guy and a decent actor, but he has a very everyman approach in him. And so to your point, he just basically serves as our entrance into this world, and then once he's hypnotized, it's like it's fair game, and we're kind of covering everybody as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of everymen in this movie in a way, but it's Peter is acting as that person. I mean, David Herman's character, he technically could be an everyman, and
not every man is named Michael Bolton, though.
That's true. Ron Lumbergh could be an everyman.
Oh God, in the worst way.
Or is it that? Or is Ron? Does Ron?
Bill Lumbergh.
Bill.
Actually, you got Ron Livingston and Lumbergh. Don't do that to Ron Livingston.
I think I've done that before. Bill Lumbergh could signify.
Lumbergh fucked her.
Bill Lumbergh could.
Sorry.
That's a lot of Lumberghs too. Like I don't know any Lumberghs, and meanwhile these people know two. That's quite a coincidence.
We'll get into that. That's the other issue I'm not particularly fond of in this movie either.
But Bill Lumbergh, does he signify the Peter character in the future? And is that maybe why he is still wanting to fight the status quo? Because he doesn't want to become Bill Lumbergh?
I mean, well, he's willing to, and this is my fundamental issue with this movie, which I ultimately do like. I mean, I still give it like a 4 out of 5 or something. I don't think it's a masterpiece like a lot of people, like you might, but
I don't think it's a masterpiece.
But it's one of your personal favorites, I guess.
Yeah.
It's not one of my personal. I talked about
But
Ace
you also
Ventura:
love
Pet
Teenage
Detective
Mutant
on
Ninja
this.
Turtles, and that that's not a masterpiece.
Do I though? The 1990 original is still pretty. It still holds up, and that's just dudes in fucking green suits.
But that's because of your sentimentality.
I don't know. It's still a pretty good movie. I mean, you've seen it. I made you watch it.
Also made me watch Power Rangers.
Okay, that one. No, I'll give you that one. That's legitimately not a great movie. The 1995 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is the movie you're talking about, not the 2017 Power Rangers reboot, which I also really like, actually. But that's beside the point. Now they're undermining my credibility by making me admit to these things that I don't like. Yes, I have the Squeakle on DVD. What of it? But yes, it is the fact that he only does any of this because he got hypnotized. That's my first fundamental issue with this movie and why I don't think it's a masterpiece. And secondly, in the third act, his whole thing turns out being jealous of his girlfriend because he thinks she slept with someone, thinks she slept with Lumbergh. And, that becomes the whole focus of the movie. And that feels really, first of all, kind of misogynistic in a way for him to be all up in arms about that. But also,
she got mad about it. She broke up with him.
Right. Well, he was being an asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, I understand it's, he thinks it's gross because he thinks what Lumbergh stands for and all that other stuff. But first of all, it's not like he says it's not even the right Lumbergh. But also, I feel like the focus of the movie is pulled from a larger corporate thing onto this one very specific kind of random plot development that happens with the O guy at the party. That guy. Who also has some funny lines
and gifts. Well,
they're like everything is. We'll get into the flair and stuff in a minute, but who do you feel is the most memorable character of this movie? I guess Milton is broken out too much, but whose scenes and whose things do you feel hit you the most? Because for me, it's probably Lumbergh, where he's just if you can go ahead and come in on Saturday, that would be great. And the whole trying to avoid that conversation. I said evoid because I'm going to say evade and then avoid, and the wine turned it into a new word called evoid. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to lean into it. He was trying. You have to evoid that conversation by sneaking out of work that day. So I think Gary Cole is perfect here. Almost as perfect as he is as Mike Brady. He's so perfect. I think he's better as Mike Brady than he is here. And Brady Bunch movie is one that I hadn't seen until you showed me. Because I was like, that looks dumb. I don't know if I care. And then you're like, no, that's the point. It is dumb. It's kind of poking fun of how dumb the Brady Bunch, how dated that show was and everything, by bringing them into a modern context. So I actually think he's kind of almost better in the Brady Bunch movie than he is here. But who in Office Space is kind of your personal favorite?
I don't know. What is his name in the movie?
The O guy?
Michael Bolton, right.
Michael Bolton? How did you forget? Of all the names, that's the name you forget? The most important characteristic about him is his name, is Michael Bolton.
I know. I had a moment with the wine. No, Michael Bolton, because I still like David Herman. I was a fan of him from Mad TV, and he's just so belligerent about his name, and kind of a suck up because he's in those layoff meetings basically, and he's just like, oh yeah, I love Michael Bolton. I don't know. I have a soft spot for Michael Bolton.
What the suck upness of him, or what part do you relate to? Or you find him endearing because he's kind of stuck in a situation and doesn't know how to get himself out of it, so he's just like, yeah, sure, he's great.
Yeah, and he's also just random because him listening to rap music is the reason that movie is the entire soundtrack.
And that whole move about singing along with something very confidently, whether it's rap or Michael Bublé, and then as soon as someone pulls it next to you, the window goes up and you're just like mumbling to yourself. I'm like that with all music I listen to, whether it's hip hop or, like I said, Bublé or a soundtrack or something or whatever. I'm very much like that. So that rings really true for me. Do you think that the reference to Michael Bolton is kind of dated now that most people only know him as the guy from the Jack Sparrow video? Because he was huge in the late 80s and the 90s when we were kids. It was all like, when a man loves a woman. But I feel like
that's
now...
That's really Rob singing, guys, not a CD.
No, that was... Wow, thank you. I appreciate that. Cheers. So you think the Michael Bolton thing hasn't aged particularly well? Since now he's mostly known as Jack Sparrow and things like that.
And from Teen Titans Go movie.
He is the upbeat, inspirational song about life. Thanks to our 2-year-old. I've heard that a bazillion times.
I think it's possible that Office Space actually was really good for Michael Bolton's career.
I think it probably was.
Because
it might have been when he was on the wane.
It made him a joke, which then like Chuck Norris. Like, Chuck Norris is technically a joke, but he has...
Well, I don't know if he's a joke, but he's definitely... I mean, he's a kind of a cheesy action star who knows martial arts, but doesn't really know how to act particularly well, even though he somehow had a TV show for like a decade.
Yeah, so he just kind of... So Michael Bolton took the joke and now has had a resurgence in his career.
Yeah, because he's self-aware. And I think this might have been of the fulcrum point of that. Because this was... Jack Sparrow really kind of pushed that. But I think this was the first time he was kind of... Michael Bolton was kind of introduced as a concept and not so much as a singer. If that makes sense. So Michael Bolton I wasn't expecting you to say that. I was thinking you were going to say Milton or something.
I do like Milton though too.
Do you find Milton an endearing character, even though he's sort of a arsonist?
That's the only word for him?
I mean, he's an arsonist. He sets fire to the building at the end. That's what.
Yeah, but he's
thereby committing arson.
He's not just an arsonist though. He's also like quirky and
beyond quirky. Yeah.
And does he have? Are they trying to showcase that he has like special needs or something?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they're just trying to be more. Because I had a feeling that's what you were going to say. I have a feeling it's just more like extreme social anxiety and like that kind of thing. I don't know if it's necessarily a special needs thing. I feel like if that is the case, then that makes that character a lot more problematic than I think he's intended to be. I feel like he's just the timid office worker who knows all about his work but doesn't really relate to people that well. The opposite of Tom Simkowski. I keep calling him Tim or Jim. Tom Simkowski. Who's his whole thing is
I bring them to the customers. What do we need you for? I'm good with people.
What's wrong with you?
I think about that scene a lot too.
What exactly is it that you do here?
Yeah. Oh God. And the thing with that character, I'm like, I feel bad for him.
They fixed the glitch.
We've been in that situation, or we know people that have that
Tom?
that really depend on their job, need their job, feel a kinship with their job, and the chance that they might lose it. And it's it's a very terrifying feeling. And in that moment, I mean, you could tell that he was getting scared. Like, I'm probably gonna lose this job. And meanwhile, the 3 disenfranchised employees, they don't like their job at all. Michael Bolton more doesn't like his job, but he's just like, well, this is my job.
Yeah,
I need money.
What I do, yeah.
And Samir is like, I like this job because it's, I'm from another country and this is a great job for me to have here. And then of course Peter's just like, fuck this place.
Which is why he's
the one that gets promoted.
Yeah, when he walks away from Lumbergh and Lumbergh's like, Peter, would you mind? And he's like walks right past him like, it's so awesome. So satisfying to watch.
And that's the thing though, that's exactly how corporate life is the ones that don't care, they're the ones that get promoted.
Oh, that's one of the funniest moments in the movie when he's just like, I don't really care. I don't really into this. I think I'm done now. I'm gonna leave. And they're like, okay, thanks. And they're like, he's going places. We're gonna promote him and all this stuff. They're like, what?
And Michael Bolton's telling him, like, you should start caring about work a little bit more. You're supposed to go to your meeting. And he's like, they actually want to promote me and lay you off. And they're like, what? And then of course that's how them getting back at the man.
And I feel like there's flashes of the idiocracy so realistic it's literally scary kind of thing in this movie, because you have things like Tom Simkowski who gets laid off and then it's contemplating suicide, it looks like, and then his wife comes in and realizes it's like, hey, what are you doing? He
wasn't even contemplating. He was doing
it. I guess he was in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And because he was so distraught over losing his job, like you said, freaking out in the meeting and stuff. That he was going to commit suicide, and his wife catches him, that he just like wakes up from his like depression, backs out of his driveway, gets in a car accident, and is like, I can't move my arms and legs, but I'm getting all this settlement and shit like that. that's like the best case scenario when you're in a corporate environment is kind of the thing that really that's a happy ending for Tom, getting hit by a car and being like, yeah, I'm all fucked up, but I got the settlement, so yay. You know what I mean? That really crystallizes Peter's I don't want to be in this environment any longer type of deal, where even when they don't get in trouble for what went down and Milton ends up taking the money and all that, I'm going to be that's construction better, I think. Not so much with the cubicles and being trapped in 9 to 5 and having to answer to people like Bill Lumbergh. I just go out there, work with my hands. It's very tangible. I can just shake it off literally at the end, shake the dust off, and then go and live my life. And I think it's sort of perpetuates his life view at that moment. We didn't talk at all about Joanna and her working at, I don't know, but it's basically a TGI Friday / Applebee's / Ruby Tuesday / whatever.
Chili's.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those. So her whole thing with Mike Judge as her manager and that one super happy guy with all his flair.
That is Mike Judge.
Yeah, that's his. He always has doesn't he usually have kind of a cameo or small role in things?
I think so.
I think he does in Idiocracy too. I just can't remember what it is because I haven't been man enough to watch it a second time.
He's not a director. He's not a person that's really up center.
No, if it is, it's usually the voice work. He does Beavis and Butthead, and he does Hank Hill.
But yeah, he's not Steven Spielberg. We all know what Steven Spielberg looks like.
Right, exactly. I would still recognize Mike Judge. Well, but that's because of the he's in the Spy Kids movies, which I enjoy, from Robert Rodriguez, and he has kind of a central role in especially the second one. But he's on all three. So I think that's where I realized, hey, that's Mike Judge. Okay, I know who that is. So what did you think about the Joanna side of it? We get sort of a little subplot with her and the flair and that whole thing going on. And she doesn't like to talk about her flair.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Joanna. I mean...
Aniston is legit good in this.
She is. And that was during the time of the fake extensions that were really easy to add. Because she had that hair on Friends, too. And I really still think that to this day that it wasn't ever real. But it's a good look for her. But I really like Joanna. Yeah, I was... During the time I saw this, a couple of years before I saw this movie, I was working as a waitress. And that was around the time they were starting to change it to the name to be called server. Mm-hmm. But and I didn't work for somewhere like that. But she was putting up with a lot of crap, and I like where she's like, so if you want me to wear it's weird. She was basically acting like Peter, except not under hypnotist, not under hypnotism, and I think Peter's influence helped her get out of her own stuff. Because in the beginning of the movie, she's like, oh sure, yeah, what can I do what can I do? And then at the end of the movie, yeah, she's flicking her boss off. And
well, because the whole thing is they want her to express herself, which fuck that, express herself by having as much flair as she wants or whatever. But she has on the minimum number of flair, which flair, for people that somehow haven't seen this movie, is the buttons, the little funny whatever gimmicky buttons that she has on her vest that are part of her uniform. And she had on the minimum number of flair, and he's like, oh, we like people to have 15 or more pieces of flair. It's like, well, if you want me to wear 15, just make the minimum 15. It's like she's one of those clock in, clock out. I go to work because it's my job, not because I'm here to kiss ass or whatever. And her evolution over the course of the story is very much running in parallel to Peter.
I actually want to do a side story
Go for it.
So when I moved to Tampa, and obviously you know this story, when I moved to Tampa, I was kind of in limbo with work because I had traveled to China and Australia.
Oh, I do know this story.
And I was like, well, I used to be a server, so let's just give that a try in the interim, and until I actually find another corporate job to go back to. And so I went to Outback. I think it was Outback, and I went in for an interview to be a server, and the manager's interviewing me. He's looking at my application, and he says, oh, well, we're really looking for someone that wants to have a future, that's here for the long term. So let's just say I didn't get the job at Outback as a server because I didn't want to, it looked like I didn't want to be there for the long term.
Well, you just come back from Australia, So you had that experience to bring to Outback. Did that not help at all? I'm sure you talked about that in your interview. They're like, hey, what's up with this gap of employment?
You would think so, but clearly, but remember though, Outback is an Orlando-based company. So I relate to Joanna and they're like, oh, the flare.
So you narrowly avoided having to wear flare, basically.
Yeah. And the thing is, and for me, it worked out for the best because who knows, I could have gotten stuck. I mean, like, oh yeah, I got to go to my shift as a server at Outback. I mean, I'll be doing this for like 5 years. Yeah, but tips are good.
Like, oh yeah, there's that. Did you buy into the relationship, or did you think it was like, whatever? Even though I actually think Aniston's stuff on her own is more interesting.
Well, the thing with Joanna and Peter, though, is that I think that they needed each other to push each other to do what they were doing. I'm not going to say better, because I don't feel like they made each other better, but like they pushed each other to get out of the shit that they were dealing with in their jobs. So Peter had gotten hypnotized, but I think Joanna was more also a catalyst for him becoming like that more and more. It's just like Peter was a catalyst for Joanna to literally flick off her manager and customers, and they needed each other in their lives to be like that. That's
a very La La Land statement of you.
Yeah. It doesn't look like they were together that long, and it was weird that he...
Don't they reconcile at the end?
They do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they went on and he even said, he's like, I want you, like, I don't remember the exact quote, but he wanted her in his life because he thought that she made his life better. And so it didn't matter what he was doing, he just wanted her there with him. But I do think it's weird, though, that his girlfriend cheats on him, and he doesn't want to talk to her anymore. And then the next day, he then wants to go out with Joanna. It's quite a rebound there.
Well, he doesn't care. He doesn't have any inhibitions anymore. She's just like, whatever. This person was a terrible person. This person's pretty and seems interesting.
And I wonder what it was about her that he was interested in, other than her just being pretty.
Maybe it's just Joanna. It's like her own version of a little corporate box, not in a cubicle, but kind of the same thing, basically. And I don't know, maybe he saw that life through her eyes for that moment. And he was like, you know what, you want to go get lunch? And by the way, as a single guy, I totally admired his, I'm gonna go have lunch next door at this time or tomorrow or whatever. And if you show up, great. If not, whatever, I don't fucking care. I thought that was great. Like, I wish I was that laid back I wish I was that laid back when I was single. Just to be like, if she shows up, that's cool. If not, I got things to do. It's no big deal. No sweat off my back or whatever.
And people are definitely attracted to that. Not just
about
relationships. I'm also talking about like friendships and professional life. That like my dad actually has told me something multiple times that I feel like does ring true. Is you want to care, but don't care too much.
Right.
Like, and he's talking about it in a professional sense, but
you could apply that, especially now, to politics. You could apply that to relationships. Like, don't overemphasize don't like overly focus on one area of your life, because then you're just going to drown it with your own thoughts, and you're going to stifle it. In a way.
Like I even I have a career planner. I didn't promote that, but I have a career planner, and one of the things I mentioned, because it's like an inspirational career planner with motivational things about how to get ahead at work. But one of the things even says is care, but don't care too much. So that means care about your job for sure, and care about doing good, having strong work ethic, but don't care about your role in your job. Mm-hmm. So don't care if they're going to fire you. Don't care if they're going to lay you off. You just do your job, do it well, and go home. And that's all you should that's the only focus you should put on it.
That's a good point.
Because managers can sense fear. Well, like with Tom Simkowski.
Because I had it up. So otherwise I wouldn't
Tom
remember.
Simkowski, I mean, they sensed fear. And
the efficiency experts, I wanted to get back to that. The Bobs. Oh, it's so great. They're great too, because it is how that works. That all those interview scenes with them was, and it's like you said, Peter doesn't, he actually doesn't care at all, and it works out for him just fine.
He showed up.
Yeah, I know. He was just like, I got nothing going on right now. Let's see what's up. Let's see what these guys have to say. Pretty much.
But I'm gonna go to work at the right time.
He'll go to work. He's supposed to work when he feels like it. He's like, well, you mean imagine sitting alone in his apartment, listening to Lawrence on the other side watching television. kind of gets boring after a while. You're like, yeah, let's go to work and see what's going on over there, see what everybody's doing.
And he says, the Bob say, you've been missing a lot of work lately. I wouldn't say I've been missing it, but
yeah. So ultimately, their plan works, sort of, but Milton gets all the money.
Well,
and it takes off.
So the plan worked very well, but the problem is that Michael Bolton missed a decimal place.
So they take all the money at once instead of over the long period of time.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, just this small thing I missed. And then Peter says, the small detail. I want to say that's a small detail.
And this is the first point I know we're winding down the podcast.
Gets called a horrible person.
This is the first point in the movie where Peter actually cares about something since being hypnotized, where he's like, oh my God, I can't go to prison. I'm too pretty for that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, I know. And that's really scary stuff. But I think it's good, though, that he was willing to take responsibility for what happened and go, if it came down to it, go to prison for his friends. That shows a lot of nobility.
So how did Milton end up with the money again? I forget. Because I know it ends with Milton on a beach, complaining about the salt on his margarita glass or whatever.
So Peter pushed the letter underneath.
Peter pushed the letter underneath, confessing, and then the building was on fire. But anyway, Milton ends up with the money and has a wonderful time on a beach, getting all happy and living his dream life, which again lends to the fact that this whole movie, this whole world was an extension of Milton and his red stapler in the animated shorts. As if Milton's the main character, even though watching this movie, Milton's not really the main character. He's kind of a side character who it ends on because it's in a way kind of stealthily his story, I guess.
Talk about with Milton and him kept getting his seat moved around.
Oh, you can relate to that?
Oh God, I can relate to that. That happened to me when my an internship. I kept getting my desk moved, and I worked for a Japanese company. And one of the things that is in Japanese corporate culture is that they don't fire people. Because everyone wants to save face, so they just move you around everywhere.
They fix the glitch.
Yeah, so basically you're just moved to where they can't. One way to save face is just move you where nobody sees you. And that wasn't what was going on, but that's how it felt because Office Space was already still one of my favorite movies. I'm like, what the hell is happening here? Am I Milton?
And Swingline did not make a red stapler at that point. I think they made one after this movie because people were like, hey, where's the red stapler? People wanted to have the red stapler.
You even have a shirt.
I do have a shirt. Well, the logo of this movie is the word over the red stapler.
And that's one of my favorite pictures of you when you're wearing it.
I know. From a million years ago when I was cute.
Oh.
So I guess that kind of closes the book on Office Space. What would you tell the people who in the last 20 years have somehow avoided seeing Office Space?
See this movie. I mean, I think...
Especially if you've worked in corporate America, you'd be like, oh my God, this is my life.
I really feel like you would relate to it a lot. And, even if you haven't worked in corporate America, if you've ever even worked as a server at any point or are working as a server, there's just a lot of truth to the movie, and it's funny, relatable, and the characters are fun. The dialogue is great and quotable, and it's my favorite movie.
It's your favorite movie? Legit?
Yeah. Office Space, Shawshank Redemption.
More than Clueless, which we talked about last time? I forget that.
Yes. Clueless has its own impact, but it's not one of my favorites.
Wow. That's a bold statement.
I know. That's why when you want to talk about Office, it's like, oh my God, totally.
It's almost like you took the premise of this podcast seriously.
I did.
I didn't even do that. Ace Ventura: Pet Detective is a good movie, and it's informative for my youth and all that, but I wouldn't say it's in my favorites.
Well, you got to talk about The Matrix now, so...
I did talk about that, but I didn't even pick that. So that worked out really well.
I know, it did work out, see? You picked
when I said to Freddie, I was like, hey, what's your favorite movie? He's like, The Matrix. I'm like, all right, there you go, fucking done. I know I cursed more on this episode than normal because of the wine and because it's just you and I here. But
you're cursing more than normal?
Yeah, I don't on the podcast, not in normal life, perhaps. So Kai Yaniz, who has the really cool last name, where can people find you on social media and the like?
People can find me on Twitter at the Vault Key LLC. You can also find me on my website, bebold-bebrave.com, and Facebook. I don't know. Just Google my name.
You just search Kai Yaniz, you'll find her.
It's under my old name, actually.
Kai Proctor still?
K Proctor. Yeah, they don't let you change it.
Really? That's dumb.
Like the headline?
People get married. They should let people change things.
With the URL, they said, once you pick it, you can't change it.
Yeah, that's dumb.
But I don't think that matters anymore. I don't know. Whatever. I'm on Facebook. Like,
she's there.
Other 7 millions of people.
7 millions of people. Great. So there you go. You can find Kai all over the place. Is there any idea what if we have you on again, which obviously you're my wife, you live in the house where I record this podcast all the time. What do you have any idea what you want to talk next?
Should I podcast bomb you? Would you like that?
Podcast bomb? Just show up randomly on episodes with other people and be like, hey, what's up, Adam?
Exactly. I know where you are.
That's true. You know where my recording space is. But we talked about previously, we almost did this episode on Down with Love. So I guess that, maybe that would be a subsequent episode if I decide that you're worthy enough to come back on the show at some point.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Cool.
I also still want to do a 10 Things I Hate About You.
Yeah. We've been talking about doing that as possible, like doing a commentary or some kind of nostalgia thing for either the podcast feed directly as a bonus episode or the Patreon for subscribers there. But either way, if you think that's a great idea, let me know at Crooked Table on Twitter. So, Kai Yaniz, thank you so much for joining the Crooked Table Podcast.
Thank you for having me yet again.
If you're interested in joining me on the show to chat about one of your favorite films, head on over to crookedtable.com/guest. Or you can consider supporting the show at patreon.com/crookedtable. Of course, you can always find more podcasts, reviews, videos, and other movie-related goodies over at crookedtable.com. Until next time, this has been the Crooked Table Podcast, and I've been Rob.
This has been a production of crookedtable.com. All rights reserved.
CROOKED.